The secrets to breaking free from financial struggles. How to rebuild stability, confidence, and clarity with money. If you've ever felt anxious opening your bank app or lost sleep over bills, you're not alone, but you're also not powerless. Right now, millions of people are sitting in the same place you might be, staring at numbers that don't add up, wondering how they got here, and questioning whether they'll ever feel secure with money. Maybe you're making decent money, but somehow still living paycheck to paycheck. Maybe you're drowning in debt that seems to grow no matter how hard you try to pay it down. Or maybe you're just tired of feeling like money controls your life instead of the other way around. Here's what I want you to know. Your current financial situation is not a reflection of your worth as a person. It's not evidence that you're broken, lazy, or destined to struggle forever. What you're experiencing is the result of systems, patterns, and beliefs that can be changed, not overnight and not without effort, but they can be changed. This audiobook isn't about get-rich-quick schemes or complicated investment strategies. It's about something more fundamental, rebuilding your relationship with money from the ground up. It's about finding stability, confidence, and clarity in a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable. We're going to explore why financial struggles often run deeper than just numbers on a spreadsheet. We'll uncover the emotional and psychological patterns that keep us stuck, and more importantly, we'll discover practical ways to break free from them. You'll learn how to create systems that actually work for your life, how to rebuild your confidence around money, and how to move from survival mode to a place of genuine financial peace. The path forward isn't about perfection, it's about progress. It's about taking small, consistent steps that compound over time. And it starts with understanding that you have more power than you think you do. Chapter 1. Understanding the root of financial struggle. When Sarah first came to see me, she was making more money than she'd ever made in her life. She had a good job, lived in a nice apartment, and by all external measures, should have felt financially secure. Instead, she was lying awake at night, anxious about money, despite having a decent savings account. She couldn't understand why she felt so scared about spending money on anything beyond the absolute basics. Sarah's story illustrates something crucial. Financial struggles aren't always about the numbers in your bank account. They're often about the stories we tell ourselves about money, the beliefs we inherited, and the emotional patterns we've developed over years or even decades. The truth is, most of us never learned how to have a healthy relationship with money. We learned to survive financially, to get by, to make do. But we never learned how to feel genuinely confident and at peace with our financial lives. Instead, we developed coping mechanisms, many of which end up creating the very problems we're trying to solve. Let's start with scarcity thinking. This is the belief that there's never enough, not enough money, not enough time, not enough opportunities. When we operate from scarcity, we make decisions based on fear rather than wisdom. We might hoard money we could reasonably spend, or conversely, we might spend impulsively because we believe we'll never have the chance again. Both responses come from the same root, the belief that resources are fundamentally limited and unpredictable. Scarcity thinking often develops early in life. Maybe you grew up in a household where money was tight, where financial stress was a constant presence. Maybe you watched your parents argue about money, or saw them make sacrifices that felt scary or unfair. These experiences don't just teach us about money. They teach us about safety, security, and our place in the world. But scarcity thinking isn't just about childhood experiences. It's reinforced by a culture that constantly tells us we need more, do more, achieve more. Social media shows us curated versions of other people's lives, making our own financial reality seem lacking by comparison. The news cycles focus on economic uncertainty and crisis. Even well-meaning financial advice often emphasizes what we're doing wrong, rather than helping us understand what we're doing right. Then there are the generational beliefs about money that get passed down like family heirlooms. Maybe in your family, money was seen as the root of all evil, or conversely, as the only measure of success. Maybe you inherited the belief that rich people are greedy, or that poor people are lazy, Maybe you learned that talking about money is taboo, or that financial struggles should be hidden out of shame. These beliefs operate beneath our conscious awareness, influencing every financial decision we make. They determine how we feel about earning money, spending money, and having money. They shape our expectations about what's possible for our financial future. Financial trauma is another factor that's often overlooked. Trauma doesn't just come from major, catastrophic events. It can come from chronic stress, from feeling powerless, from having our basic needs threatened. If you've experienced periods of financial instability, if you've had to choose between paying rent and buying groceries, if you've been homeless or food insecure, these experiences leave marks on your nervous system. When we've experienced financial trauma, our bodies and minds become hypervigilant about money. We might find ourselves constantly checking our bank balance or avoiding it altogether. We might feel physically anxious when making purchases, even necessary ones. We might have trouble enjoying money we do have because part of us is always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Understanding these patterns isn't about blame or judgment. It's about recognition. When we can see the emotional and psychological factors that influence our financial behavior, we can start to address them consciously rather than being driven by them unconsciously. Consider Maria, who grew up in a family where money was always tight. Her parents worked multiple jobs but still struggled to make ends meet. As a child, Maria learned to be grateful for what she had and never ask for anything extra. She developed a deep fear of being seen as greedy or entitled. As an adult, this translated into chronic under-earning. She consistently took jobs that paid less than she was worth, and she had trouble negotiating for raises or better opportunities. Her financial struggles weren't about lack of skill or opportunity. They were about deeply ingrained beliefs about what she deserved. Or take David, whose family equated money with love and attention. His parents were financially successful but emotionally distant. The only time he felt truly valued was when he achieved something that made money or saved money. As an adult, David became a workaholic, constantly pursuing financial success as a way to feel worthy of love. But no amount of money ever felt like enough, because what he was really seeking wasn't financial, it was emotional. These stories aren't unusual. Most of us have some version of complicated beliefs and patterns around money. The good news is that awareness is the first step toward change. When we understand why we do what we do, we can start to make different choices. One of the most powerful exercises you can do is to spend some time reflecting on your earliest memories about money. What did you observe about how money was handled in your family? What messages did you receive about money, both spoken and unspoken? What emotions come up when you think about money now? Don't try to change anything yet. Just notice. Notice the patterns, the beliefs, the automatic responses. Notice how your body feels when you think about your financial situation. Notice the stories you tell yourself about what your financial struggles mean about you as a person. This kind of self-awareness isn't always comfortable, but it's essential. You can't change patterns you don't recognize. You can't address beliefs you don't know you have. But once you start to see these patterns clearly, you gain the power to choose differently. The root of financial struggle is rarely just about money. It's about safety, security, self-worth, and belonging. It's about the stories we tell ourselves about what we deserve and what's possible for us. When we address these deeper issues, the practical aspects of money management become much more manageable. Chapter 2. Shifting the mindset. The morning Marcus lost his job, he felt like his entire world had collapsed. It wasn't just the immediate worry about paying bills, it was the crushing sense that he had somehow failed as a person. In his mind, his worth as a human being was directly tied to his ability to earn money. Without a paycheck, he didn't know who he was. This is the kind of thinking that keeps us trapped in financial struggle, even when we have the skills and resources to move forward. It's the belief that our value as people is determined by our financial success, that we're somehow less worthy if we're not constantly climbing the economic ladder. Shifting our mindset around money isn't about positive thinking or pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's about developing a more realistic and compassionate relationship with both money and ourselves. It's about moving from a place of fear and scarcity to a place of agency and possibility. The first shift we need to make is from seeing money as a measure of our worth to seeing it as a tool. Money is not good or bad, it's neutral. It's energy that flows through our lives, allowing us to meet our needs and pursue our goals. When we can see money this way, we stop taking our financial situation so personally. This doesn't mean financial stress isn't real or that money doesn't matter. It absolutely does. But when we can separate our identity from our bank balance, we free ourselves to make better decisions. We can assess our situation objectively, make plans based on reality rather than fear, and take action from a place of strength rather than desperation. Another crucial shift is learning to distinguish between wants and needs. Our consumer culture constantly blurs this line, suggesting that we need things that are actually wants. This isn't about living a life of deprivation, it's about clarity. When we know what we actually need, we can make conscious choices about our wants. Real needs are relatively few: food, shelter, safety, healthcare, meaningful connection with others. Everything else, no matter how much we might want it, is a want. This doesn't make wants bad or frivolous, but it does mean we can approach them differently. We can choose our wants consciously, based on our values and priorities, rather than being driven by impulse or social pressure. Lisa discovered this when she started tracking her spending. She realized she was spending nearly $300 a month on coffee, lunches out, and small convenience purchases. None of these individual purchases felt significant, but together they were creating real financial stress. Once she could see the pattern clearly, she didn't have to eliminate all these purchases. Instead, she could make conscious choices about which ones were truly adding value to her life and which ones were just habits. The concept of enough is central to this mindset shift. In a culture that constantly promotes more, bigger, better, the idea of enough can feel almost revolutionary. But understanding what enough means for you is essential for financial peace. Enough isn't about settling for less than you deserve. It's about knowing when you have what you need to live well. Enough is deeply personal. For some people, enough might mean having 6 months of expenses saved. For others, it might mean being able to take a vacation once a year. For others still, it might mean being able to buy organic groceries without stress. The key is that you define enough for yourself, based on your values and circumstances, not based on what others have or what marketing tells you should want. When you know what enough means for you, you can make decisions from a place of intentionality rather than reactivity. You can save for what matters to you without feeling deprived. You can spend on your priorities without guilt. You can find satisfaction in what you have while still working toward your goals. This shift from scarcity to sufficiency is perhaps the most important change you can make. Scarcity thinking tells us there's never enough, that we're always at risk of losing what we have. Sufficiency thinking recognizes that we can have enough, that we can feel secure and content with what we have while still growing and improving our situation. Sufficiency doesn't mean complacency. You can appreciate what you have while still working toward what you want. You can feel grateful for your current situation while still taking steps to improve it. The difference is that you're operating from a place of abundance rather than lack. One practical way to cultivate this mindset is through gratitude practice, but not the superficial kind that ignores real problems. Instead, practice what I call realistic gratitude. This means acknowledging what's working in your life alongside what needs to change. It means appreciating the resources you do have while still working to increase them. For example, instead of thinking, I only have $1,000 in savings, you might think, I have $1,000 in savings, which is more than I had a year ago, and I'm building on that foundation. The first thought creates anxiety and shame. The second creates acknowledgement and motivation. Another important mindset shift is learning to see setbacks as information rather than failure. Financial setbacks are inevitable. Everyone experiences them. The difference between people who recover quickly and those who stay stuck is how they interpret these setbacks. When you overspend 1 month, you can see it as evidence that you're hopeless with money, or you can see it as information about your spending patterns. When you have an unexpected expense, you can see it as proof that you'll never get ahead, or you can see it as a reminder of why emergency savings are important. The facts are the same, but the interpretation changes everything. This shift from judgment to curiosity is liberating. Instead of beating yourself up for financial mistakes, you can learn from them. Instead of feeling paralyzed by fear, you can take action based on what you've learned. Instead of seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance, you can see yourself as someone who's learning and growing. The goal isn't to eliminate all financial stress or to never worry about money again. The goal is to develop a relationship with money that feels empowering rather than defeating. It's to approach your financial life with confidence, clarity, and compassion for yourself. This mindset shift doesn't happen overnight. It's a practice, something you return to again and again. There will be days when you slip back into old patterns of thinking. That's normal and expected. The key is to notice when it happens and gently redirect your thoughts back to a more empowering perspective. Remember, you are not your bank balance. You are not your debt. You are not your financial mistakes. You are a human being with inherent worth, working to create a life that feels meaningful and secure. Your financial situation is something you're working on, not something that defines you. Chapter 3. Stabilizing your present. When Jennifer first looked at her spending, she was shocked. She considered herself pretty careful with money, but somehow she was spending nearly $400 more each month than she was earning. The scariest part wasn't the overspending itself. It was that she had no idea where the money was going. It felt like it was just disappearing. This is more common than you might think. Many people who struggle financially aren't spending money recklessly on luxury items. They're simply unconscious about their spending patterns. Money flows out in small amounts for reasonable things, but without any overall awareness or intentionality. The foundation of financial stability is consciousness. You can't manage what you don't measure, and you can't change patterns you don't see. This doesn't mean you need to become obsessive about every penny, but it does mean you need to have a clear picture of where your money is going and why. The first step is to start tracking your spending, not to judge it, but to understand it. For at least a week, write down every single purchase you make. Don't change your behavior yet, just observe. Pay attention to when you spend money, how you feel when you spend it, and what triggers different types of purchases. Many people resist tracking because they're afraid of what they'll find, but avoidance never makes problems go away. It just makes them worse. The reality is rarely as bad as what we imagine when we're not looking directly at it. And once you can see your spending patterns clearly, you can start to make conscious choices about them. When you track your spending, you'll likely notice patterns. Maybe you spend more when you're stressed or tired. Maybe you make impulse purchases when you're grocery shopping while hungry. Maybe you spend money on convenience items when you're rushed or disorganized. These patterns aren't character flaws. They're information you can use to make better choices. The next step is to create a basic budget, but not the kind of restrictive budget that feels like a financial diet. Instead, think of it as a spending plan that aligns with your values and priorities. A good budget doesn't control your spending. It gives you clarity about your spending. Start with your fixed expenses: rent or mortgage, utilities, insurance, minimum debt payments. These are the expenses that don't change much from month to month. Then add your variable expenses: food, transportation, entertainment, personal care. Finally, include savings and debt payments beyond the minimums. The goal isn't to create a perfect budget that you'll follow exactly every month. The goal is to create a framework that helps you make conscious decisions about your money. When you know how much you have available for different categories, you can choose how to spend within those limits. One of the most important categories to include is what I call life happens money. This is money set aside for small, unexpected expenses. Parking tickets, minor car repairs, gifts for friends' birthdays, or that coffee with a colleague that comes up spontaneously. Most budgets fail because they don't account for these kinds of irregular but predictable expenses. Another crucial element is building in some flexibility. If you create a budget that requires you to spend exactly the same amount on groceries every month, you'll feel like a failure when you inevitably spend more one month. Instead, create ranges or give yourself a small buffer in each category. The envelope system can be helpful for managing variable expenses. This doesn't mean you need to use actual cash envelopes, though you can. The principle is to allocate a specific amount of money to each category of spending and to stop spending in that category when the money is gone. You might have a digital envelope for groceries, another for entertainment, another for clothing. When the entertainment envelope is empty, you don't go out until next month, or you choose to take money from another envelope. This creates natural limits and helps you make conscious trade-offs. For many people, the biggest challenge isn't creating a budget. It's dealing with the emotional responses that come up when they start paying attention to their spending. You might feel guilty about money you've spent in the past, or anxious about restricting your spending going forward. These feelings are normal, but they don't have to control your behavior. Remember that the goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress. If you overspend in one category, you don't throw out the whole budget. You look at why it happened, adjust if necessary, and keep going. Budgeting is a skill that improves with practice. Another key element of stabilizing your present is addressing what I call financial leaks. These are recurring expenses that you're paying for but not really using or valuing. Subscription services you've forgotten about, insurance policies that might be overpriced, memberships you never use. These individually small expenses can add up to significant money over time. Go through your bank statements and credit card statements for the past 3 months. Look for recurring charges. For each one, ask yourself, am I using this? Does it add value to my life? Could I get the same service for less money? Cancel anything that doesn't pass this test. This process isn't about becoming cheap or depriving yourself of things you enjoy. It's about being intentional with your money. Every dollar you spend on something you don't value is a dollar you can't spend on something you do value. One of the most powerful things you can do to stabilize your present is to automate your finances as much as possible. Set up automatic transfers to savings, automatic bill payments for fixed expenses, and automatic investments if you're ready for that step. Automation removes the emotional component from these decisions and ensures they happen consistently. But automation isn't set and forget. You still need to monitor your accounts, review your spending, and adjust as needed. The goal is to reduce the number of financial decisions you have to make each month, not to stop paying attention entirely. Emergency savings is another crucial component of financial stability. Even a small emergency fund can prevent minor setbacks from becoming major crises. If you can't afford to save much, start with $25. If you can't afford $25, start with $5. The amount matters less than the habit. Your emergency fund should be easily accessible, which means a regular savings account rather than investments. It should be separate from your checking accounts so you're not tempted to spend it on non-emergencies. And it should be gradually built up over time, not created overnight. The conventional wisdom is to save 3 to 6 months of expenses, but that can feel overwhelming when you're just starting out. Instead, focus on smaller milestones. $500, then $1,000, then 1 month of expenses. Each milestone makes you more stable and confident. Debt management is also part of stabilizing your present. If you have debt, you need a plan for paying it off, but that plan should be realistic and sustainable. Overly aggressive debt repayment plans often backfire because they're impossible to maintain. List all your debts, including the balance, minimum payment, and interest rate. Pay the minimums on all of them, then put any extra money toward either the highest interest rate debt or the smallest balance debt, depending on whether you're motivated more by math or by momentum. The key is to pick one approach and stick with it. Don't try to optimize your debt repayment plan every month. Consistency is more important than perfection. Stabilizing your present financial situation isn't about achieving perfection. It's about creating systems and habits that move you in the right direction. It's about replacing unconscious spending with conscious spending, chaos with clarity, and reactivity with intentionality. This process takes time, and there will be setbacks. But every step you take toward greater financial consciousness and organization makes the next step easier. You're not just managing money, you're building the foundation for long-term financial peace and freedom. Chapter 4. Rebuilding Self, Worth, and Money Confidence. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning, and it changed everything for Michael. After months of job searching, he finally got an offer. But instead of feeling excited, he felt terrified. The salary was 30% more than he'd ever made, and a voice in his head kept saying, "They're going to figure out you're not worth this much." This is the voice of financial unworthiness, and it's one of the biggest obstacles to building genuine wealth and security. No matter how much money we make or save, if we don't believe we deserve it, we'll find ways to sabotage our success or live in constant fear of losing what we have. Your worth as a person has nothing to do with your bank balance, your salary, or your net worth. This might sound obvious, but our culture sends the opposite message in countless ways. We're told that successful people are wealthy, that financial struggle is a sign of personal failure, and that our value to society is measured by our economic productivity. These messages are not just wrong, they're destructive. They create a cycle where financial success becomes about proving our worth rather than improving our lives. And when we're operating from this place of trying to prove ourselves, we make decisions based on fear and insecurity rather than wisdom and strategy. The first step in rebuilding your money confidence is to separate your identity from your financial situation. You are not your debt. You are not your income. You are not your financial mistakes. You are a human being with inherent worth, working to create a life that feels meaningful and secure. This isn't about denying that money matters or pretending that financial stress doesn't affect us. It absolutely does. But when we can see our financial situation as something we're working on rather than something that defines us, we free ourselves to make better choices. Think about it this way. If you were helping a friend with their finances, would you judge them for their past mistakes or current struggles? Probably not. You'd likely be supportive, practical, and focused on solutions. You can offer yourself the same kindness. One of the most damaging beliefs about money is that financial success is purely the result of hard work and good choices, while financial struggle is the result of laziness and poor decisions. This belief ignores the countless factors that influence our financial lives: family background, education, health, economic conditions, discrimination, and simple luck. This doesn't mean that choices don't matter or that we're powerless to improve our situation. Our choices absolutely matter. But recognizing the role of circumstances beyond our control helps us approach our financial lives with more compassion and less judgment. Sarah grew up in a family where money was always tight, not because her parents were irresponsible, but because her father had a chronic illness that made steady work difficult. She learned to be resourceful, to make do with what they had, and to never take financial security for granted. These are valuable skills, but they came with the unconscious belief that she wasn't the kind of person who deserved financial comfort. As an adult, Sarah consistently under-earned. She took jobs that paid less than she was worth. She didn't negotiate for raises, and she felt guilty when she spent money on anything that felt like a luxury. Her financial struggles weren't about lack of skill or opportunity. They were about deeply held beliefs about what she deserved. The process of rebuilding financial confidence starts with recognizing these limiting beliefs and gently challenging them. This isn't about positive affirmations or pretending everything is fine. It's about developing a more realistic and compassionate view of yourself and your capabilities. One powerful exercise is to write down the messages you received about money growing up. What did your family say about money? What did they say about people who had money? What did they say about people who struggled financially? What did you conclude about your own relationship with money? Many of these messages were probably well-intentioned, but they may not serve you now. For example, if you learn that money is the root of all evil, you might unconsciously sabotage your financial success to avoid becoming a bad person. If you learned that rich people are greedy, you might avoid pursuing opportunities that could improve your financial situation. The goal isn't to blame your family or your upbringing. The goal is to recognize how these early messages might be influencing your current financial behavior and to consciously choose new beliefs that serve you better. Another important aspect of rebuilding money confidence is learning to celebrate your financial wins, even small ones. Our culture tends to focus on what we lack rather than what we have, what we've spent rather than what we've saved, what we've done wrong rather than what we've done right. But celebration and acknowledgement are crucial for building confidence. When you pay off a debt, even a small one, acknowledge it. When you save money, even a small amount, appreciate it. When you make a good financial decision, recognize it. These moments of recognition build momentum and reinforce positive patterns. It's also important to recognize that everyone's financial journey is different. Comparing your situation to others is rarely helpful and often harmful. You don't know the full story of other people's financial lives, and their path may not be appropriate for your circumstances. Instead of comparing yourself to others, focus on your own progress. Where were you financially a year ago? What have you learned? What habits have you developed? What goals have you achieved? This kind of self-comparison is much more useful and motivating than comparing yourself to others. Building financial confidence also means learning to trust your own judgment. You might not be an expert on all aspects of personal finance, but you are the expert on your own life. You know your values, your priorities, your circumstances, and your goals better than anyone else. This doesn't mean you should ignore good advice or avoid learning from others, but it does mean you should filter that advice through your own understanding of what works for your life. Personal finance is personal, and what works for someone else might not work for you. One of the most important skills you can develop is the ability to make financial decisions from a place of calm clarity rather than anxiety or pressure. This means taking time to think through major financial decisions, researching your options, and choosing based on your values and goals rather than fear or external pressure. Practice making smaller financial decisions mindfully. When you're considering a purchase, pause and ask yourself, do I really want this? How does this align with my values and priorities? Can I afford this without stress? Am I buying this to meet a real need or to deal with an emotion? This doesn't mean you should overthink every purchase or never buy anything spontaneous. It means developing the habit of conscious decision-making so that your financial choices align with your intentions rather than just happening to you. Another key element is learning to handle financial setbacks with resilience rather than shame. Everyone makes financial mistakes. Everyone has unexpected expenses. Everyone sometimes spends more than they intended. The difference between people who recover quickly and those who stay stuck is how they respond to these setbacks. When something goes wrong financially, resist the urge to make it mean something about your character or your future. Instead, treat it as information. What can you learn from this situation? How can you handle similar situations differently in the future? What systems or habits might help prevent this from happening again? This approach turns setbacks into learning opportunities rather than evidence of failure. It builds resilience and confidence rather than shame and discouragement. Building financial confidence is not about becoming fearless or never worrying about money. It's about developing the skills, knowledge, and self-compassion to handle your financial life with competence and grace. It's about knowing that you can handle whatever comes up because you've developed the tools and the mindset to do so. This confidence becomes a foundation for all other financial progress. When you believe you deserve financial security, you're more likely to pursue opportunities that create it. When you trust your own judgment, you're more likely to make good decisions. When you can handle setbacks with resilience, you're more likely to keep moving forward despite obstacles. Your financial situation is not a measure of your worth as a person. You deserve to feel secure, to have your needs met, to enjoy some of the good things in life. You deserve to make financial decisions from a place of confidence rather than fear, and you have the capability to create the financial life you want, one step at a time. Chapter 5. Strategic Growth with Limited Resources. When Carlos looked at his financial situation, he felt stuck. He was barely making ends meet on his current income, and he couldn't see how to change that. He wasn't qualified for higher-paying jobs in his field, he didn't have money to invest, and he felt like he was running as fast as he could just to stay in the same place. This is the reality for many people, the desire to improve their financial situation, coupled with the practical challenge of limited resources. The good news is that significant financial progress is possible even when you don't have much to work with. It requires strategy, patience, and a willingness to think creatively about opportunities. The key is to focus on what I call micro-decisions, small choices that seem insignificant in the moment, but compound over time to create meaningful change. These decisions often require more time and attention than money, making them accessible even when resources are tight. One of the most powerful micro-decisions is choosing to invest in yourself. This doesn't have to mean expensive courses or degrees. It can mean using free resources to learn new skills, reading books from the library, watching educational videos online, or finding mentors who are willing to share their knowledge. The goal is to gradually increase your value in the marketplace. Every new skill you learn, every bit of knowledge you gain, every relationship you build is an investment in your future earning potential. These investments compound over time, often in ways you can't predict in advance. Maria started as a receptionist at a medical office. She was interested in medical coding but couldn't afford to take classes. Instead, she borrowed books from the library, watched free tutorials online, and asked questions of the coders at her office during lunch breaks. It took her 2 years of studying in her spare time, but she eventually learned enough to get a medical coding certification. Her new job paid 40% more than her receptionist position. The power of this approach is that it costs very little money but can have a huge impact on your earning potential. The main investment is time and attention, resources that everyone has access to regardless of their financial situation. Another important strategy is what I call income stacking. Instead of trying to dramatically increase your primary income all at once, you create multiple small income streams that add up to meaningful money over time. This might mean taking on freelance work in your spare time, selling items you no longer need, providing services to neighbors, or monetizing a hobby. None of these activities might generate a lot of money individually, but together they can create a significant boost to your income. The key to successful income stacking is to start small and build gradually. Don't try to launch 5 different income streams at once. Pick one, develop it until it's generating consistent income, then add another. This approach is more sustainable and less overwhelming than trying to do everything at once. David was a teacher who wanted to increase his income, but couldn't take on a second job due to his schedule. Instead, he started tutoring students after school, offering yard work services on weekends, and selling educational materials he created to other teachers online. None of these activities took huge amounts of time, but together they increased his income by about 20%. Cash flow awareness is crucial when you're working with limited resources. This means understanding not just how much money you have, but when you have it and when you need it. Many financial struggles come from timing mismatches rather than overall income problems. For example, if you get paid monthly but most of your bills are due in the first half of the month, you might find yourself short on cash in the middle of the month, even though your overall income is adequate. Understanding these patterns allows you to plan for them and smooth out the cash flow fluctuations. One practical strategy is to create a cash flow calendar. List all your income and expenses by date for the next 3 months. This will show you when you're likely to have cash flow challenges and allow you to plan for them in advance. You might be able to change the due dates of some bills, or you might need to set aside money from earlier in the month to cover later expenses. Another important concept is opportunity cost. When you have limited resources, every choice you make means giving up something else. Understanding these trade-offs helps you make more strategic decisions about where to focus your time and energy. For instance, if you have 2 hours of free time each evening, you could spend it watching television, working on a side business, learning a new skill, or doing household tasks that would otherwise cost money. There's no right or wrong choice, but being conscious of the trade-offs helps you make decisions that align with your priorities. The 80-20 principle, also known as the Pareto principle, is particularly useful when resources are limited. This principle suggests that 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. The key is to identify which activities give you the biggest return on investment and focus on those. This might mean focusing on the highest paying clients if you're freelancing, or concentrating on the most valuable skills if you're trying to advance in your career. It might mean cutting the expenses that have the biggest impact on your budget rather than trying to reduce all expenses equally. Networking is another powerful tool that doesn't require financial resources. Building relationships with people in your field, in your community, and in areas where you want to grow can open doors to opportunities you wouldn't have access to otherwise. This doesn't mean manipulating people or being fake. It means genuinely connecting with others, being helpful when you can, and maintaining relationships over time. Many opportunities come through personal connections rather than formal job applications or business proposals. The key to networking when you don't have much money is to focus on giving value rather than asking for things. Share useful information, make introductions between people who should know each other, offer to help with projects, or simply be someone who's pleasant to be around. These contributions build goodwill that often returns to you in unexpected ways. Another strategy is to leverage other people's resources and knowledge. This might mean finding business partners who complement your skills, joining or creating mastermind groups where people share ideas and resources, or participating in skill-swapping arrangements where you trade services with others. For example, if you're good at social media but need help with bookkeeping, you might find someone who's good at bookkeeping but needs help with social media. Instead of each paying for these services, you can trade them. This allows you to access resources you couldn't afford to buy. Community resources are often underutilized, but can provide significant value. Libraries offer not just books, but often computer access, meeting spaces, and educational programs. Community colleges frequently have low-cost or free courses. Local business organizations might offer mentorship programs or networking events. Many cities have small business development centers that provide free consulting services. There are often nonprofit organizations focused on financial literacy or career development. These resources exist specifically to help people who are working with limited financial resources. The key is to research what's available in your area and take advantage of these opportunities. It requires some time and effort to find and access these resources, but the return on investment can be substantial. When you're working with limited resources, it's also important to be strategic about any money you do invest. Before spending money on anything related to your financial growth, ask yourself, is this the highest and best use of my limited resources? Will this give me a clear return on investment? Is there a less expensive way to achieve the same result? This doesn't mean being cheap or never investing in yourself. It means being strategic about your investments and making sure they align with your goals and priorities. One of the most important investments you can make is in your financial education. Understanding how money works, how to manage it effectively, and how to grow it over time is knowledge that pays dividends for your entire life. This education doesn't have to be expensive. There are countless free and low-cost resources available if you're willing to seek them out. The power of compound growth applies to more than just money. It applies to skills, relationships, knowledge, and habits. Small, consistent improvements in these areas can lead to dramatic changes over time. The key is to start where you are with what you have. and focus on making consistent progress rather than trying to achieve everything at once. Remember that many successful people started with limited resources. What they had was vision, persistence, and the willingness to take strategic action despite constraints. These qualities are available to anyone, regardless of their financial situation. The goal isn't to become wealthy overnight. The goal is to create momentum, to build systems that gradually improve your financial situation, and to develop the skills and knowledge that will serve you throughout your life. Every small step forward makes the next step easier and creates opportunities you couldn't see before. Chapter 6. Long-term clarity and freedom. When Jennifer retired last year, she wasn't wealthy by conventional standards. She didn't have $1 million portfolio or a luxury lifestyle, but she had something more valuable: complete peace of mind about money. She knew exactly how much she needed to live comfortably. She had systems that managed her finances automatically, and she felt genuinely free from financial worry for the first time in her life. This is what real financial freedom looks like. It's not about having endless money or never having to think about finances again. It's about having clarity about what you need, systems that work reliably, and the confidence to handle whatever comes up. The journey to this kind of freedom is built on habits, not just plans. Plans are important, but they're only as good as your ability to execute them consistently over time. Habits, on the other hand, become automatic. They don't require willpower or motivation. They just happen. The most important financial habit you can develop is paying yourself first. This means setting aside money for savings and investments before you pay other expenses. It doesn't matter if you start with $20 or $200. What matters is that you do it consistently, without exception. This habit works because it prioritizes your future financial security over current spending. When you pay yourself first, you're forced to live on what remains, which naturally controls your spending. When you save what's left after spending, there's rarely anything left to save. The key is to automate this process. Set up automatic transfers from your checking account to your savings account that happen on the same day you get paid. Treat these transfers like any other bill that must be paid. Over time, you'll adapt your spending to account for this payment and won't miss the money. Another crucial habit is regular financial check-ins. This doesn't mean obsessing over your accounts daily, but it does mean reviewing your financial situation regularly and making adjustments as needed. Many people avoid looking at their finances when things are going well, but this is exactly when you should be paying attention. Schedule a monthly financial review where you look at your spending, check your progress toward goals, and make any necessary adjustments. This habit keeps you connected to your financial life and helps you catch problems before they become crises. The power of compound interest is often called the eighth wonder of the world, and for good reason. When you start investing early and consistently, even small amounts can grow into significant sums over time. The key is to start as soon as possible and let time work in your favor. This doesn't mean you need to become an expert in investing or spend hours researching stocks. For most people, simple, low-cost index funds are the best choice. They provide diversification, require minimal management, and have historically provided solid returns over time. The most important decision about investing isn't which specific investments to choose. It's to start investing at all. You can always learn more and adjust your approach as you go. But you can't get back the time you lose by waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect knowledge. Emergency savings becomes even more important as you build wealth. The goal isn't just to have enough money to cover unexpected expenses. It's to have enough so that you never have to disrupt your long-term financial plans to deal with short-term problems. As your income grows, your emergency fund should grow too. The standard recommendation is 3 to 6 months of expenses, but the right amount depends on your situation. If you have a stable job and good insurance, 3 months might be enough. If you're self-employed or work in a volatile industry, you might need 6 months or more. The key is to think of your emergency fund as insurance for your financial plan. It's not money you're trying to grow, it's money that protects everything else you're building. Debt management takes on a different character when you're thinking long-term. While it's important to pay off high-interest debt as quickly as possible, not all debt is bad. Low-interest debt on appreciating assets, like a reasonable mortgage, can actually be part of a sound financial strategy. The goal is to eliminate debt that doesn't serve your long-term financial goals while strategically using debt that does. This requires understanding the difference between good debt and bad debt, and making conscious choices about which debts to prioritize. Tax planning becomes increasingly important as your wealth grows. This doesn't mean trying to avoid paying taxes altogether, but it does mean understanding how your financial decisions affect your tax liability and structuring your finances to minimize taxes legally. Simple strategies like maximizing contributions to retirement accounts, understanding the tax implications of different types of investments, and timing certain financial decisions can save you significant money over time. As your situation becomes more complex, it may be worth consulting with a tax professional. Estate planning is another aspect of long-term financial health that many people ignore until it's too late. This isn't just about having a will, though that's important. It's about making sure your financial wishes are clear and that your loved ones won't face unnecessary complications if something happens to you. Basic estate planning includes having a will, designating beneficiaries on your retirement accounts and insurance policies, and possibly having a power of attorney for financial decisions. These steps don't require a lot of money, but they can save your family significant stress and expense later. As you build wealth, it's important to regularly review and update your financial goals. What seemed important when you were struggling to pay bills might be less important when you have financial security. What seemed impossible when you were living paycheck to paycheck might become achievable as your resources grow. This doesn't mean constantly changing your goals, but it does mean staying flexible and adjusting your plans as your life changes. The goal is to create a financial life that supports the life you actually want, not the life you think you should want. One of the most important aspects of long-term financial success is maintaining perspective. There will always be market fluctuations, economic uncertainty, and unexpected challenges. The key is to stay focused on your long-term goals and not let short-term events derail your progress. This requires developing emotional resilience around money. It means not panicking when investments lose value temporarily, not getting overconfident when things are going well, and not making major financial decisions based on fear or greed. The ultimate goal of financial planning isn't to accumulate the most money possible. It's to create a life where money serves your values and goals rather than controlling them. It's to reach a point where you feel genuinely free to make choices based on what's important to you rather than what's financially necessary. This freedom looks different for everyone. For some people, it means being able to retire early. For others, it means being able to work part-time or change careers. For still others, it means being able to be generous with others or to pursue passions that don't generate income. The key is to define what financial freedom means for you personally, then build systems and habits that move you toward that goal. It's not about following someone else's plan or achieving someone else's definition of success. It's about creating the financial life that best supports the life you want to live. Building long-term financial stability and freedom is a marathon, not a sprint. It requires patience, consistency, and the willingness to delay immediate gratification for long-term benefit. But it's also one of the most empowering things you can do for yourself and your family. Every habit you build, every dollar you save, every wise decision you make compounds over time. What seems like slow progress in the moment can lead to dramatic changes over years and decades. The key is to start where you are, with what you have, and to keep moving forward consistently. Remember that financial freedom isn't about perfection. It's about creating systems that work reliably, building habits that serve your goals, and developing the knowledge and confidence to handle whatever comes up. It's about reaching a point where money enhances your life, rather than complicating it. The journey to financial freedom is ultimately a journey to peace of mind. It's about knowing that you have what you need, that you're prepared for what might come, and that you're moving steadily toward your goals. It's about sleeping well at night because you know your financial life is in order. This peace of mind is available to anyone willing to do the work. It doesn't require a high income or perfect circumstances. It requires clarity about what you want, systems that support your goals, and the patience to let time and compound growth work in your favor. Your financial freedom is not a destination you reach and then forget about. It's a way of living that you develop over time. It's a set of habits, systems, and mindsets that serve you throughout your life. And it starts with the decision to take control of your financial life and the commitment to keep moving forward one step at a time. Conclusion: your journey forward. As we reach the end of this conversation about money, I want you to remember something important. You already have everything you need to start transforming your financial life. You don't need more money, more education, or more time. You need clarity, commitment, and the willingness to take the first step. Your financial struggles are not a reflection of your worth as a person. They're simply a problem to be solved, a challenge to be met with wisdom and persistence. Every person who has achieved financial peace and freedom started exactly where you are now, with the decision to change their relationship with money. The path forward isn't about perfection, it's about progress. It's about taking one small step, then another, then another. It's about building systems that work for your life, developing habits that serve your goals, and creating the financial foundation that will support everything else you want to do. Some days will be harder than others. There will be setbacks, unexpected expenses, and moments when you question whether you're making progress. This is normal and expected. The key is to keep moving forward, to learn from your mistakes, and to remember that every small step matters. Your financial freedom is not just about the money in your bank account. It's about the peace of mind that comes from knowing you can handle whatever comes up. It's about the confidence that comes from understanding how money works in your life. It's about the freedom to make choices based on your values rather than your financial limitations. This journey is yours to take. No one else can do it for you, but you don't have to do it alone. There are resources, communities, and people who want to help. The key is to start where you are, with what you have, and to keep moving forward. Your financial future is not determined by your past. It's not limited by your current circumstances. It's created by the choices you make from this moment forward. And you have the power to make choices that will transform your financial life. The secrets to breaking free from financial struggles aren't really secrets at all. They're principles that anyone can learn and apply. They're habits that anyone can develop. They're systems that anyone can create. What makes them powerful isn't their complexity, it's their consistency. You deserve to feel secure, confident, and free in your financial life. You deserve to have your needs met, to pursue your goals, and to sleep well at night knowing that your financial life is in order. And you have the capability to create exactly that kind of life. The journey starts now. The journey starts with you. The journey starts with the decision to take control of your financial life and the commitment to keep moving forward no matter what. Your financial freedom is waiting for you. It's time to claim it.